When Wilhelm Steinitz needed a victory in Hastings 1895, he created an immortal piece of tactical art. In this game, he played against von Bardeleben, a strong German chess grandmaster. You will see how Steinitz, the first official world champion, delivered one of the most stunning combinations in history of chess. Steinitz opens with e4. And his opponent responds with e5. White decide to develop his knight to f3. And black also develop his knight on c6. Steinitz brings his bishop to c4. And the game enters into an Italian game. The black simply responded, with bishop to c5. And Steinitz signals his aggressive intentions early, with pawn to c3. White is planning to push the pawn to the center with d4 later on, to get a solid control at the center. Black tries to attack the undefended pawn on d4. White continues his plan by pushing the pawn to d4. Black strikes back in the center, taking the pawn. White recaptures. Black decided to move his bishop to check the white king, gaining with a tempo. And Steinitz offers an ambitious pawn sacrifice with knight c3, leaving the pawn on e4 hanging. According to Stockfish, black could actually take the free pawn on d4. But the German grandmaster, thinking that his opponent must have prepared this, and plays pawn to d5, which is a mistake. This allows white to seize absolute control over the center files. Steinitz happily takes the pawn on d5. Black recaptures. And now, white move his king to safely by castling. Black cannot take the knight on c3 and taking the extra pawn, as his king is vulnerable at the center. A wise decision for him is to castle immediately. Black tries a different approach and develop his bishop on e6 instead. White decided to develop his bishop and attack the black queen. The dark bishop drops back to e7. In this position we will see a lot of trades. First, white capture the knight on d5. Black recaptures. Knight takes. And queen recaptures. Steinitz noticed that the black king hasn't castled. This would become a bigger problem if it stays longer at the center. White decided to go for one more trade. And black captures the bishop. Steinitz has stripped away the defenders around black's king, and he immediately seizes the open file of the board with rook to e1. The black king couldn't castle as it would leave his knight undefended. Black goes for f6, intending to move his king to f7, unpinning his knight, and restrict the white knight jumping on the e5 square. Steinitz move his queen to e2, applying pressure to the e-file, also threatening to take his knight on e7. Black defends it with his queen. White decides to take another open file by moving his other rook to c1. In this position, the Stockfish suggest that black must move his king to f7. But black is so focused in the opponent's last move, and he played pawn to c6, a big blunder. Not only this is a passive move, but missing the chance to manually castle with king to f7. Steinitz strikes open the center with the energetic blow pawn to d5. Black takes the pawn. And now, the c-file and d-file is open while the king is still on the center. Steinitz plants his knight onto the monster outpost d4, a strong move, threatening a possible lethal invasion on e6 or c6. And now, the German grandmaster finally marches his king out of the pin with king to f7. But Steinitz immediately follows through with knight to e6, another strong move. Black swing his rook h to c8, a big mistake. Black tries to contest the open c-file, but this hands Steinitz the exact spark he needs to ignite a legendary combination. First, Steinitz move his queen directly into the attack with queen to g4, threatening mate on g7 and forcing black to weaken his kingside pawn cover. Black plays g6, stopping the mate. And now, a mind-blowing legendary move is about to happen. Fasten your seat belt and get ready. In this position, Steinitz saw a combination sequence. Can you see the best move for white? Now comes the explosion. Knight to g5, a brilliant move. Steinitz uncovers a discovered attack on the undefended black queen while offering his knight as outright bait. Von Bardeleben is forced to retreat his king to king e8 to defend his queen. The queen is defended, and now what? Steinitz follows up with one of the most famous tactical moves in history. Rook takes e7, another brilliant move. The white rook steps directly onto a square defended by the black queen, and yet it cannot be taken. If he tries to take the rook with a queen, he would lose the rook on c8. If he takes it with the king, then there's queen to b4 check. In the game, black move his king to f8. But Steinitz's rook relentlessly pursues him across the 7th rank like a haunting ghost. Rook to f7 check. Black move his king to g8. And now, again rook to g7 check. Black steps aside into king to h8. Rook takes h7 check. At this point, black decided to resign as this is obviously losing for black. What a fantastic game of the first world champion. That's the end of the video. Like and subscribe for more chess master class.